Hi, this is Hohndel Bhartia, and welcome to this special edition of TFR Insights for Open Source Summit. And today we have with us once again our friend Dirk Hohndel, Chief Open Source Officer at VMware. Dirk, I'm so used to seeing you in person that it's kind of strange to be that we're talking, but we're not in the same room. So this COVID-19 has kind of changed a lot of things. But beyond COVID-19, a lot of other things are happening in this world, especially if you look at the political climate that we are living in today, has made it actually more important to talk about the things that we have been talking for a while, which is diversity and inclusion. And there are so many other topics that are going on. So first of all, I want to just hear from you, because you're also very active on Twitter, that what is your assessment of what is going on in this, our political world, which will have an impact on the tech and open source world?
There are so many things that go through my mind here. It is a very strange time that we live in, and it's a time that feels to me like we're watching history being made. And I remember when I was much younger in 1989, when the Berlin Wall came down. I lived 15 minutes from the inner German border, and this all to me felt like something we never expected could happen. It was this hugely positive surprise. And I felt at the moment, oh, wow, I am experiencing history happening. And it was super positive. I feel the same way right now. I am feeling history happening, but it's certainly not positive. It's not something that I enjoy. I find it incredibly frustrating to see how the political parties are dealing with what's happening, how Washington is not dealing with what's happening, and how the police brutality against Black people appears to continue on with all our efforts to make sure people understand that Black Lives Matter, and that the vast majority of the population is solidly behind that idea. Yet still, those in power seem to feel that they can continue on just as they were. And that is so heartbreaking, and it's so upsetting. And in many ways, it overshadows everything that we do in the tech industry. I will, however, say that there are forces in the tech industry and large companies that, in my mind, make it worse. I find Mark Zuckerberg's behavior and the choices that he makes very, very frustrating and very negative for us as a society. But it's very hard to not get into a rat hole of me complaining about the injustice in the world, which I don't think your audience wants to listen to.
I don't think there is any audience want to listen or not. The thing is that we have a platform, and these are the concerns that we have. So we are going to talk about it. And the good thing is that we are not in a closed platform. We are an open platform where anybody can come, where they see their thoughts and ideas are resonated. Now, you did mention that there are a lot of challenges, problems, but you are also in a position of a lot of influence and power, not power over political, but power over the community. So
oddly, I don't feel really like I'm in a position of a lot of power. Maybe that's where we all think about ourselves. But thank you.
Right. So you can also kind of, we can complain. There are a lot of people who all they do is complain all the time on Twitter, but we can also be the problem solver. So when it comes to diversity and inclusion, I think this is the time we should, you have yesterday I was talking to Kathleen. She's an author of, Be Better Allies. She also delivered a talk at Open Source Summit. And one of the things that come up, you earlier mentioned that when you go to events in the hallway track, you on purpose go and talk to a person who doesn't look like you. You'll stand with them and talk. So these are small efforts that we make, but it has deeper impact. So she was like, yeah, this is a very great idea. So you are in a position where you are doing a lot of things that can, of course, you cannot solve at a higher level, but at a certain level, we can do our role. So my first question to you is that despite whatever disappointing, depressing the situation is, I think it's actually even more important for people like you to become more active and do more things to help the cause. So talk about is it now even more important today to talk about diversity and inclusion?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's super important to talk about it, but it's almost more important to act on it. So what are the hiring principles of your company or of your group, of your team? How are you making sure that as you interview, you have a diverse set of candidates. In my group, there will not be an interview roundtable until we have diverse candidates being heard and being seen. And we have a very, very diverse team. I mean, it's a small team, the open source team at VMware, but we are 40% women. We have Black employees, Asian employees, island employees. I have one Native American employee. We very much try to create the most diverse set of people that we can, and it is very important that anybody who has that opportunity to engage with others focuses on not just engaging with people who are like them. And so when I look at the opportunities at a conference for people who are new in this field and who are trying to find an opportunity for a career, it is up to us, the people who are already established, to reach out to them and to give them that entry point, to give them the opportunity to talk, the opportunity to engage and listen to them. It's so easy to say, oh, you're all invited to come to my talk where I'll tell you how things should be. But that's not really the approach. Go in, ask them questions, listen to them, and as they ask you questions back, well, then answer. But give people the opportunity to be heard, to be part of all this. And a lot of folks forget about that. And a lot of folks think that all you need to do is make a few positive statements and you got this one checked off. And in that specific way, I think that the virtual platform that we have at Open Source Summit makes it a little harder, because it is often harder to figure out who you're talking to. And I understand that some people are uncomfortable having their picture up and having their full name as their handle on Slack, because they are afraid of being discriminated against because of who they are, how they look, how they present themselves. And I'm actually super happy that so many people now add their pronoun to their description, so you know how you should talk to them. But it's challenging. I don't think there's a simple answer.
We have discussed diversity inclusion earlier, but something that is also different is you talked about conference part, but what about your team which is already there in place? At this time, usually when we go to office setup, you talk to some of our colleagues also become our friend. We share a lot of things there, and when you go into that environment, they feel like it's a kind of comfort zone where they can be themselves. But because of this COVID-19, everybody is locked into their houses. So do you also think that it's even more important for organizations, companies, to kind of have some kind of, I don't know what is the right word for it, so that even if they don't have the comfort zone or hanging out in the coffee room or whatever, to even for your team also, because like you, as you said, you have a very diverse team, and the political climate in this country is not very welcoming.
We have a weekly chat where we hang out together. It's a video Zoom where we talk about the things we baked last weekend or our latest hobby projects or whatever we're doing. And that is very much designed to be the water cooler where we can hang out, be social, be friendly, and be supportive. And I do emails where I reach out to the employees on the team. I want to make sure that everyone knows that we as a company, I as the head of the team, that we care and that we want to make sure we understand where they are emotionally, and to make sure that they feel safe and supported in what they're going through. And the distance makes it harder, of course. But frankly, my team has always been remote. So yes, we have 2 offices where there are quite a few people going into an office, but a large chunk of my team has always been remote, always has been virtual. So to us, it's just a shift in degree of how we interact. It's not as completely new as it is to some other teams.
Right. Now, you said, it's one thing more is that, when they feel threatened, like a lot of discussion is going on around the terminology. I'm talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. GitHub talked about it, Red Hat talked about it, then master and slave is there, but that's just only one. Blacklisting, whitelisting is there. In networking world, there's black boxes, white box. You have greenfield deployment, brownfield deployment. So what are your thoughts on this? I mean, a lot of people, they just don't think that it's really critical or matters, or it's just, oh, we have been using it for a while? Do you think we should do something in that space also? And if you do want to do it, how far will you go? Because there will always be something that will be offensive to one culture or person.
So language matters. The terms that we use and their connotation to people matters. So in my hobby project, I am working on this. So we are going to switch from a master branch to a main branch. A very typical, my hobby project is a dive log. You have the dive pictures behind me. So a very typical term in diving is actually, it's a description of a job, is dive master. And so we're going to change that to dive leader. Those are small things. And it's interesting that some, oddly, white male developers think that I'm being stupid and that I'm just, virtue signaling or whatever. But to me, it matters. It matters what people feel when they read about this, when they see the description, when they engage with the project or with the program that they use, to see words that they don't perceive as insulting or derogatory or negative for them. And yes, of course, will you ever be perfect? Is it a reasonable expectation that you will get to a point where everyone is happy with what you do? Yeah, I don't think so. I have worked in this industry long enough that I know that I will always make people unhappy. That is one of my key skills, that I can make people unhappy. But I think it's important that we try, and it sets an important signal when those of us who have maybe a larger audience or more people who look at what they do, then set those examples and try to do the right things. And even if we don't get all the way there, it's that effort, it's that path, it's the action that matters. And I certainly want to do that.
The advantage with you is you're involved with a lot of kind of foundation organization, so either there are a lot of companies who are doing these kind of efforts in isolation versus a joint combined effort to just change those terminologies, so that it's not like X company did that, but why? Because for developers also it becomes really hard. For one project they are using this nomenclature, for other project they are not. So should there be a coordinated effort also led by some neutral foundation?
So there are some. So GitHub is in the process of figuring out how they can do that for all of the GitHub properties. Apple in the latest Xcode has changed the default branch name when you use Git to being main. I know that there are efforts at other companies. The Linux Foundation has been super vocal about bringing in more women. They have made some very strong statements around Black Lives Matters, and they have taken some actions. They aren't really in the position to affect what language people use in the projects, but they're certainly encouraging this. It's really hard whenever you try to say, let's do something coordinated, let's do something central, let's have an overarching body fix this for us, because it's this thing that takes the responsibility away from the individual company, and gives it to a decision by committee. And in my experience, that the intention behind it is usually good. The outcome usually is underwhelming. I think it's much more important that each and every one of us think through our actions and think through how we position what we do and what language we use and how we engage with others and try to improve.
Yes, Linux Foundation may have, but we still see in the tech field, especially in the open source field, the representation of women is not there as much as you. Most of the time when I go to see the keynotes, mostly you see male. Sometimes they would bring a woman there just to, I don't know whether they do on purpose or just to have, so that nobody can criticize it, but that is a serious problem. So first of all, we have talked about it. We don't have to repeat that, the importance of representation, but something strange is happening, and you may choose not to answer or address that question, and that is, once again, it goes to political, that there is a ban on certain kind of visas. Now, if you look at country like like US, where we have, I come from a different country. Elon Musk has come from different company. You come from a different country. Linus came from different country. Steve Jobs' father. So we came from different parts of the world. But there is this kind of political instead of tech, politics is playing role, where if you cannot have people from different cultures and country come to your, so the diversity that we talk about, it will become a monoculture while you're serving the global community. So how, I mean, this is kind of totally going backward. We are actually moving forward. So when you talk about, importance of representation and inclusion, but suddenly you are blocking the flow of, people and talent.
A policy that restricts immigration, that specifically restricts H-1B and L-1 visas, is short-sighted and stupid. And it undercuts the major advantage that the United States have in an economic world, because people used to want to come here and used to help build these amazing companies. Google, Apple, Microsoft, all have immigrant stories behind them. Maybe it's not that generation, maybe it's a generation or two back. And then, frankly, almost everyone, except for our few Native American leaders here, is an immigrant. And the rhetoric around that is just incredibly dumb. And the fact that, oh, by the way, the European Union has now said that people from the US aren't welcome to travel into the EU is heartbreaking, because it's a result of the incompetence of how we are dealing with the crisis. And then as a response to that crisis, saying, oh, and we don't let these brown people in, is just a sign of abject racism and stupidity and nothing else. So yeah, I struggle with this. I struggle with an assumption that has this nativism, this idea that there's something inherently better about being a white male. I am a white male, and I resoundingly disagree with that. And oh, by the way, of course, I was born in Germany, as you can hear by my accent, and I did come to this country. So yeah, this is a very sore topic for me.
Of course, none of us has crystal ball in our hands, but I mean, if you the country you come from, or country I come from, we have a long history, and things can get better. Do you have any hope?
So that's a tough one. I do find that I have shared this before. I suffer from depression, and I do find that my depression is flaring up a lot more lately, because it does seem very bleak. And I look at what's happening. I look at the decisions that are being made. I look at the loud choir of sycophants who are supporting an abhorrent administration, and it's upsetting. And I find it hard to find hope, and I find it hard to say, oh, and after the election everything will be better. It's challenging. So I focus on the things that I can change. I focus on the things where I can engage, where I can make a difference for people, where I can help. This goes back to what I said earlier. It's always so easy to wait for somebody else in the right position to make the change, be the change that you want to see happen. Engage, do what's within your power. And even if you're just a developer in some project, you can make a difference in the way you treat others, in the way you engage with people. And the more influence you have, the higher you go in the hierarchy, the more things you can do, and the more opportunities you have to make a difference.
There are a lot of people, organization, especially people, they are in the leading position, just the way you are. They have their teams, they have their projects that they have to lead, and they also see the morale of their team, or their developers is really low. So suddenly, what kind of unique challenges this situation has created to kind of govern projects or lead your teams? And how you are in a position to also, you have experimented a lot, you have a lot of great ideas. So first of all, talk about the challenges. Second is, if you have some kind of suggestions for how they can just be there for the team.
I think again, a very, very good question, a very hard question. I think the key is to be human. The key is to reach out to people as a team, as a group, individually. And goal number one is to find a way to listen, and find a way that the people you work with feel like they're being listened to, and feel like it is safe for them to speak up. So they aren't being treated poorly because of something that they said. Instead, you're trying to understand what they're saying, and you're trying to work with this. Can I fix every problem that my people bring to me? Of course not. But I can listen to them, and I can do what is within my reach to help make things better. That sounds very idealistic and kind of foolish, but in reality, that is all we can do. And it's often hard, it's often challenging, but it's important to just go out there and listen to people. And one of my Black employees told me how what is happening right now brings back memories of what he has experienced himself in the past with police brutality, with being beaten, even though he had nothing to do with what was happening around him. And just being there, listening to it, acknowledging it, and doing your part to help in small ways to make all this better makes a difference. And that's what we all need to do.
You are lucky to have your team all remote, as you mentioned earlier. Most of the people are already used to this, but there are a lot of people who are not used to it. They are working remote. What kind of impact is this having on not only their personal but also professional life, and how they can, because you have kind of mastered this art of working remotely and being efficient, and also being available to your team all the time. Not all the time,
I
sorry.
think I think it's certainly something I've done for much of the last 20 years, but it is challenging. So I have the resources to have an office in my house. I have a setup that makes it easy to work from home. Other people who are in one of my employees' 2-bedroom apartment, a family of 4, it is really, really hard to work from home in situations like this. And there are no simple answer. There is no, oh, this is the magic trick how it becomes easy. It all comes back to listening, understanding, being supportive, and trying to use what's within your resources to make things easier. So VMware is giving a stipend to every employee so that they can help create a better environment in their home office. Is that sufficient? No. Is it a step in the right direction? I hope so. So it is in all of these things. It's our small acts. It's our approach to engage with others, to listen to their problems, and to try to understand and help that really makes it better. And so my advice to anybody who has a remote team is just that: find the time to listen.
I was just reflecting on the previous initial discussion that we had. You mentioned Black Lives Movement and then what Facebook was doing, and then suddenly the thought came in, was that there was a lot of boycott even by the employees at companies like AWS or Microsoft, that they should not offer their machine learning technologies to ICE or other organizations. Now I have mixed feelings about it, because traditionally I have been an open source guy, and the belief system was that anybody, even a terrorist organization, should be able to use open source technologies. You are no one in the position to decide who should or should not use it, because based on their political view, suddenly you might think of a group like Antifa to be totally, terrorist organization, and you may want to restrict access. So what are your thoughts? And also at the same time, some, irrespective of what kind of government organization they are, they might need access to technology. Now that is a political problem that we should abolish such organizations, whatever it is. But should we give access to such technologies to such organizations? There is also a big difference here. I want to make sure that, for example, I have a Ring doorbell. That doorbell was meant for my purpose, where I see who is coming to my house or not. Now Amazon selling or giving that data to law enforcement so they can also see and create that is totally ethically wrong. Or Facebook, I create a private group to discuss things, and Facebook shares that's wrong. But giving access to technology like, let's say, OS or virtual machines or cloud, or let's say AI ML, it is a slippery slope. So I want, because you have not only strong opinions, but also you are also very sensitive about it. So I want to hear your opinions. What are your thoughts about it?
I think this is very much a slippery slope. And it's so easy to say, obviously, this organization is bad. Obviously, they shouldn't have access to this technology. And to me, that is super dangerous, because who gets to make that decision? And what happens if a person who fundamentally disagrees with you, or who is, fundamentally evil, suddenly gets to make that decision? And decisions like this can very easily be used to create an autocratic, dictatorial system that suppresses minorities. So in my mind, when in doubt, you should err on giving people access to technology, and realizing that maybe they won't do great things with it. I think that is the better choice than supporting a system that creates a dictatorial censorship that disallows certain uses. I am a huge proponent of First Amendment rights in the US that guarantee you the right to free speech. And even if you say things that I find horrible, I still think you should have the right to say them. Doesn't mean I need to listen, doesn't mean I need to like you if you say these things, but you should have the right to say them. And in that sense, open source software is like speech. I think we should have the right to distribute it, and we should allow people to use it.
Dirk, thank you so much. First of all, as I said, these are like not very comfortable topics to talk about, but thanks for not only taking your time out, but to also tackle them very craftily. And I look forward to talk to you again. Thank you.
It's worth it. Take care.